Hello, Toya. So what did you do today?
I drove here, went to class, had lunch, slept, and now I'm at class again.
Okay, you said you drove here. Where are you from?
Denham Springs, Louisiana.
Okay, okay. What classes did you go to today?
Theory 3 and Forum.
Okay. And how was lunch today? You said you went to lunch. Where'd you go?
Went to Hooters and got wings. It was really good.
Okay.
Very nice. Okay, now I want you to do one more exercise for me, please. Some nodding is okay, and this is what you're learning right now. If you're asking a question and the person's saying something really interesting, you can nod just a little bit to indicate that you're listening to them. You haven't fallen asleep. It's okay for them to keep on this conversation trail. Okay, too much nodding looks ridiculous. So I want you, since I like the ridiculous, I want you to ask her a question, and I just want you to nod the whole time she's answering you, okay? Make sure it's a question that she'll have to take a long time to answer.
Okay, so Toya, you're a student here at Loyola?
Yes.
Okay. So what's your major?
Music industry studies with emphasis in piano.
Okay, so Toya, what do you plan on doing with that?
Plan on going into entertainment law.
Okay, is this enough?
It feels so awkward, and especially if you're interviewing, let's say, an alleged axe murderer, and you're saying, so what was it like when you killed all those women? And he's saying, it was great, I really loved it, and you're standing there and you're shaking your head like, I agree, I can't wait to do the same thing myself. So it really feels uncomfortable. So if you limit your nodding to, just minor nodding, just acknowledgement, that's good. Another thing that really annoys people, especially editors, is when the person who's doing the interview says, the whole time you're trying to ask questions, because the editor can't find a place to get you out of the soundbite. I do celebrity interviews all the time, and one of the things that I know I can't do is speak. I can't be seen. Most times I'm not even mic'd because you don't hear my voice. If I'm doing an interview for Entertainment Tonight or Access Hollywood or E, you never see me. You might see my name and the credits roll by so fast that if you don't pause it, you're not going to see it, and it's so small. But when I'm there, I'm just invisible. I'm just the person who's getting the information for somebody else who's talent on the show to actually ask the questions or phrase whatever it is they want to put around the interview, around the soundbite, to do it so that it sounds like they're there. Do the question, but ask her.
Toya, how was your weekend? What did you do?
It was good. I went to Houston to see my family, and let's see, what else did I do? I went shopping, and that's about it.
So, you went to Houston. Did you visit family? What kind of event was going on?
Why you saying, I said I visit family.
You heard that? Remember we talked about that? You're listening, you're thinking so hard about your next question, you didn't hear what she just said. She went to Houston to visit family, and you said, did you visit family? But when you're so busy talking to yourself, saying those that can kind of throw you off. You did a great job. You guys were fabulous. Thank you. What you want to do before you start an interview is you want to establish a tone. First impressions count. So if you're going to be interviewing somebody, you want to make sure you make a really good first impression. And you have to do this even before you meet the person, because what if they walk in and they see you doing something really gross, yawning with your mouth open, or what if they saw you coming out of the restroom and you didn't wash your hands? That's not a good first impression. That person's probably not going to want to shake your hands when you go to reach for it in the interview. So you really have to stay on guard. You have to know that you're always going to be in the limelight. Everybody's going to see you. So, walk in with a strong stride, have your head up, have your rib cage separated, from your, have your rib cage up high. Unless it's a somber occasion, you want to convey energy and excitement. I remember I had to interview Christina Aguilera for, I can't remember which channel it was, but she was down here for Mardi Gras with MTV. And we were supposed to interview her early in the morning. So I'm on Bourbon Street with all the other crews from all the other networks who were going to do the same interview. And they said, okay, you'll interview her at 11 o'clock, and it was 9 in the morning. And so we're dressed, and it was it was Mardi Gras, so it was the time of year when it's freezing cold, and then it gets really hot, and then it gets cold again, and that's how long it took. They said 11 o'clock, they said 1 o'clock, they said 5 o'clock, they said she has to have a nap, she has to eat some dinner, and by the time we got to interview her, it was 11 o'clock at night, and I was freezing cold because I didn't wear the right clothes. I didn't expect to be there all day. My feet hurt because I was on Bourbon Street all day in the wrong shoes. It was just a nightmare. I was hungry because I didn't want to leave because they didn't stick to the schedule, and they didn't really tell us when we were going to interview her, and I didn't want to go out and get something and then come back and find out I missed my one chance to interview her. So by the time we finally got to interview her, it was about 11 o'clock at night. And it was so weird because she just walked by us on her way to the hotel. And she was just so tired. She was exhausted. She'd been dancing all day. She'd been practicing all day, and she was full of energy. And I saw her walk by, and she was just really dragging. And I thought, God, I have been here all day just to interview her for one, 30-second soundbite on whatever the show is. She's got to be more exciting than she is right now. So when she walked up to me, I said, Christina, they love you at Mardi Gras. What do you think of New Orleans? She's like, oh, great. It was, she picked up my energy. And it was a great interview. And I remember seeing it on the air, and I thought, wow, this is amazing, because that time of the night with no food and no sleep and no rest and freezing cold, I could have gone to her just like I did for Eduardo and said, so how do you like Mardi Gras? And she would have given me that kind of boring answer. So you have to establish a tone. You have to make sure you have that energy. And look for quotes and anecdotes. Try to get people to tell you a story. And if you've heard about a story that somebody's told already, try to get them to retell that story, because usually people tend to embellish a story a little bit, so it'll be better the next time you hear it and when it's on your air. Another thing, you want to use paralanguage, which is just body language, and Barbara Walters uses it. How many have seen Barbara Walters interview somebody? Everybody, right? And I have this quote from the New York Times Magazine article. It says, she leans toward her subject, her eyes boring in, almost squinting with intensity. But her facial expression is benign, her body language unthreatening. The unspoken message behind her gaze is, I understand, I care, I'm here for you. And that's how you want to make a person feel, like you really do care about what they're talking about, because that's why you're interviewing them. You want to know who they are, you want to find out all about them. You want to be able to retell their story, or you want them to tell their story. So you really have to care enough to find out. You can also push a source to detail a specific incident. And here's an example I got from the textbook that I used. It says, in court, you said Margaret was a ruthless, brutal woman on her way up the corporate ladder. What kind of behavior and incidents led you to conclude that? And you know you're going to get a good answer out of that question. So try to put the question in context of what you're talking about. And when you're doing an interview with somebody, try to have them say your question in their answer. And you can just you can establish that by saying, I'm going to ask you these questions, and I have to do it all the time, but you're not going to be talking to me, you're going to be talking to somebody else. I won't even be here. I don't have a microphone. They're not going to hear my question. So would you please incorporate the question into the answer? And they don't always do it. So if you're taping, you can go back and ask them to say it again, because sometimes they'll just agree with you. And that's doing you no good, because you don't have them saying what they need to say. And if they're not using you, then you're not going to be there, and your question's not going to be there. What happens when your mind goes blank? Yeah, because you're sitting there, and especially if they're taping and everybody's watching you, because when you're doing television, you're not alone. And then you've got this person who thinks you know what you're doing. One of the techniques that really works is you've heard the last 3 or 4 words that the person said, so you repeat those words and you phrase it as a question. So if you don't know what they're talking about, and the last thing you heard was, and as a result, the building was in terrible shape, and you look at the person and you say, the building was in terrible shape. And you can nod too, wouldn't you? And they'll say, yeah, the plaster was sagging from the walls, the fixtures had been torn from the pipes, and then, you're out of your coma, so you can start talking again with this person. You can continue your interview.